children.
Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the history of animal testing, the controversies and the movements against it, and to end on a happier note, the alternatives that are being implemented today by researchers. So why, do you ask, do we need alternatives? Hasn't animal testing been used for countless products and drugs that help humans? Well, prepare to be educated. So let's look back on the first recorded instance of animal testing and do a little flashback Friday, if you will, to ancient Greece. Animal testing was first done in ancient Greece by Aristotle and other physicians. They performed vivisections on animals. What are vivisections, you ask? Vivisection is the practice of operating on live animals for medical research or other experimentation. Nice job, Aristotle. At this time, vivisection was not morally questioned because most believed that humans were granted a higher rank in the chain of being. Eventually, this way of thinking was replaced by the empiric school of thought. The empiric school of thought focused on experiences and believed that it was pointless to try to understand nature. They focused on what could cure an illness instead of what caused it. With this way of thinking, they rejected vivisections because not only were they cruel, they believed them to be useless. For a while after this transition, animal experimentation was not often practiced. People focused on eternal life rather than worldly life and believed that their diseases had supernatural causes. Fun fact, one of my greatest fears is plague doctors, so if past lives exist, I was probably killed by the Black Plague. Next up is the Renaissance era, in which the anatomist Vesuvius dissected illegally obtained human cadavers. This raises the question of where do you illegally obtain human cadavers? The answer is this. Vesuvius and his students would raid the gallows of Paris for half-decomposed bodies and skeletons that they could dissect. But Vesuvius' questionable practices don't end there. He also vivisected animals for his medical students. What the heck, Vesuvius? You're supposed to be a role model. Vesalius' birthday is the 31st of December, which also happens to be Lord Voldemort's birthday. Coincidence? I think not. In his defense, Vesalius' work comparing human and animal anatomies was fundamental. Still, its cruelty was questioned. At the beginning of the Age of Enlightenment, physiological experiments on animals led to questions being raised on its unethical nature. Still, Descartes, along with many others, viewed animals as machine-like or soulless. Philosopher Spinoza even went as far as to acknowledge animals' ability to feel, but still supported the use of gruesome testing. The idea of animal sentience had been introduced, but not quite recognized. In the beginning of the 18th century, experiments were put on public display, and inevitably people criticized them, seeing them as purposeless and cruel. Jeremy Bentham, an English philosopher, famously stated that the question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? Animal research had advanced by the second half of the 19th century, but people were becoming increasingly anti-vivisectionalist. There are many openly anti-vivisectionalist people, including Queen Victoria. Fun facts about Queen Victoria. She was only 5 feet tall. Am I feeling superiority over the second longest reigning monarch in British history, who's been dead for over 100 years, because I'm 4.5 inches taller than her? Yes. Francois Magendie became the archenemy of the anti-vivisection movement. His experiments were horrible, and even supporters of the use of animal testing thought him exceptionally cruel. In fact, his work inspired the Cruelty to Animals Act of 1876 in Britain, which was the first piece of legislation to regulate animal testing. There was another British researcher who was so exceptionally cruel that his wife eventually divorced him, taking her 2 daughters with her, and by the way, those 2 daughters would eventually grow to hate him. She started a rescue shelter for dogs and joined the ranks of anti-vivisectionalists. Nice. At this point, the debate surrounding animal testing was intensified to a degree it never had been before. Some people stated that animal testing was necessary to promote the scientific advancements of humanity, while others thought that cruelty was immoral. Liberals. At the rise of the 20th century, the medical field was beginning to experience great advancements in its knowledge of disease treatment. It became impossible to argue that animal testing did not bring about any benefit. Around this time, researchers began switching the animals they used from dogs and horses to to rats and mice because they're viewed as disgusting by the public and therefore less worthy of moral consideration. If you agree with that, allow me to soften your heart by telling you the Latin name of the common mouse, Mus musculus. The 1970s experienced a resurgence in anti-vivisectionalist movements, and researchers began to realize the necessity of replacing animal testing with more humane alternatives. In 1999, the Declaration of Bologna, not Bologna, was signed in the Third World Congress on Alternatives to Animal Use in the Life Sciences. It stated that human science is a prerequisite for good science and is best achieved in relation to laboratory animal procedures by the vigorous promotion and application of the 3 R's. That was my best Italian accent. The 3 R's are replacement, reduction, and refinement. Replacement of traditional animal testing procedures with more technologically advanced ones that use as few animals as possible. Reduction of the numbers of animals needed to conduct such tests. And finally, refinement of tests so that they cause the least amount of stress and pain possible to the animals being used. Animal testing still continues today, but there are several organizations working to restrict or ban animal testing once and for all. These organizations have passed legislations in states and even countries. So make sure to support those organizations and let's just save those animals. Thank you for watching.